I'm here in beautiful Virginia, and it's sunny out today, and it's the winter time. When I was growing up, I thought in the winter everything was just dead. There's nothing interesting happening, and of course there's no plants growing in the winter time. That doesn't happen. We have to wait till spring. Actually, that's wrong. Today we're gonna go on a wild winter weed hunt and just see what awesome, amazing plants that are probably growing in your backyard, even if you don't have a view like this, that you can find and eat right now today in the winter in the mid-Atlantic. All right, so come on and check it out. So our first plant we're gonna look at today is the humble three-leafed clover. This is a plant that many of you, I'm sure, have seen a four-leaf clover before. But did you know you can be lucky forever if you just eat a four-leaf clover? That's right, clovers are actually edible, and they're almost everywhere you can find a field or a meadow or your own backyard. It grows low to the ground, and it has 3 leaflets. So this whole entire plant I'm holding, this is all one leaf, and it has these little smaller parts, and they're called leaflets. So it has 3 leaflets, and they're all rounded. They almost just look almost completely like a circle. And you can actually just eat this raw. It's a little chewy, a little tough, but it has a really mild, grassy flavor. You could add it to a green smoothie if you're into that kind of thing. And you can eat the stems as well. So you can eat all the above ground parts of this plant. And you can also cook it. You don't want to actually ferment this plant. That's the only way you don't want to eat this plant. But raw or cooked is totally fine. But it's in the pea family, so the same as the peas that you buy at the store. And it's also a nitrogen fixer, so it can make nitrogen more accessible to other plants around it if you're planting it in a permaculture guild. And it's just really abundant. Next stop on our wild winter weed plant hunt is a really awesome plant called hairy bittercress. Has a really fun name. This plant is in the mustard family, also known as the brassica family. So a lot of your favorite vegetables at the grocery store, like cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, are all in this family. Mustard greens, which this is a mustard green, is it's really spicy. So where they make mustard is from the seeds of a type of species in this family. But it has what's called a compound leaf. So all of these also little leaflets, like we talked about with clover, this is all one leaf. And they kind of grow on this little stem. If you come over here closer, you can see what's called a basal rosette. So that basically means these plants come right off of the ground. There's no stem that the leaves are branching off of. And this is the same thing as dandelion. And this is also edible raw. This is one of my favorites because if you really like spicy foods that have a little bit of a kick, this is a great one. It would be great in a pesto if you want it to be a little bit hotter, have a little spice. But yeah, you can just eat a bunch of this raw. Also, if you look really closely, there's actually these super cute little white flowers growing right now, which is pretty crazy. It's the winter time and there's flowers blooming right now. So if you want to make a little bouquet of flowers for a fairy or someone you love, you can still do it even in the winter time in Maryland or Virginia. Our next plant looks very similar to this white clover, which we already talked about, and that is the 3-leaflet heart-shaped wood sorrel. This is one of my favorite plants and a plant that kids love to eat. They both have 3 leaflets, but the clover again is these rounded leaflets, and the wood sorrel, this one's really tiny, but has 3 heart-shaped leaflets. And they're both edible. But this one, it's a lot softer and easier to chew, and it also tastes really good because it has oxalic acid in it, which makes it really sour. Some people even call this green candy, and or sour grass. If you like sour candy, you're sure to love this plant. It does have what are known as oxalates in it, and if you have kidney stones or you're susceptible to them, you should be mindful not to overeat this plant, but it actually has less oxalates than spinach does. So it's not something to be worried about if you're not eating baskets of salads of it every day. But it's a really delicious plant, and you can also just eat it raw. It grows just low growing to the ground in these little clusters. It's this really delicate little plant, and it's just very abundant everywhere. If you go to the redwood forest in California, there is a larger version of this called redwood sorrel, and it just blankets the entire carpet of the redwood forest, and it has a beautiful purple on the back, and you can just eat it by the handful. It's really fun. So that's wood sorrel. Our next plant friend on our wild weed hunt is chickweed, Stellaria media, and this plant is a creeping plant, so it creeps along in these really long strands. It also has what's called opposite branching. So as you can see here, there are two leaves that are opposite each other. Start with two this way that are opposite, and then it'll shift to opposite in a different orientation, and it keeps doing that up and down the branch. This is probably one of the best plants if you're trying to make a wild edible salad, because it has a really neutral flavor and it's really easy to chew. And oftentimes, since it's trailing and it gets really long, this is a really small patch of it, but you can find, especially in the summertime, massive patches of it. And it's just a great thing. You just toss some salad dressing on it and you can eat a huge handful of it. Also great as a base in pesto for a neutral, mild flavor. But you can just eat this again, raw, straight up. So our last plant for today is kind of hidden. Well, it looks like I'm just sitting in this field of grass. And while many types of grass are edible, this plant is extra tasty. And that is onion grass, also known as field garlic. This plant is hollow, so if you open this plant up, you will be able to see through it. And the big key identifying factor of this plant is the smell. It smells so distinctly of onion or garlic because it's in the onion garlic family, alliums. And it is also edible raw right away, and has a really sweet, garlicky onion flavor. It's really delicious. You can also chop this up and use this as chives with some scrambled eggs or anything you like to use oniony garlic flavor with. There's also, if you dig this up, we'll see if we can do it here. There is actually a bulb, a little garlic bulb that you can also eat and use in place of garlic. You just got to be very careful when you're digging these out not to break the stems, and you're going to lose your bulb. It helps if you have a stick to do this. Okay, I got the little bulb. There we go. Check it out. So that little bulb there, and really potent, really good, but the bulb is indeed edible, as well as this whole above ground part. So those were 5 plants that are growing in relative abundance this time of year, even in the winter, a time when a lot of things are dying or still staying dormant, ready to blossom in the spring. And so don't let the winter stop you from going out and foraging and learning new plants. If you are new to foraging, I really recommend getting a field guide. I'll link some in the description of this video that I recommend starting out with. Also, if you don't feel safe and you're not 100% sure you can identify a plant, don't eat it. There's plenty of great naturalist clubs in different areas, and it's always a good idea to go with an expert when you're starting to learn a new plant, especially if you're planning on consuming it. But none of these plants are unsafe to touch, so even if you don't feel comfortable eating it, I recommend just going out and just starting to identify the plants in your backyard. Start with the ones that are most abundant and common that you see all the time. And once you get more confident, try nibbling on a few of them and see how good they taste, and that you can harvest this abundance right from your own backyard. You can't get more local than that. One word of caution though is I don't harvest right near roadsides because of runoff and different chemicals, or near any place that people spray pesticides. So if you or a neighbor sprays a pesticide application, make sure you're harvesting it away from there so you're not ingesting those chemicals. Other than that, have fun, and if you're not sure, feel free to ask me a question in the comments below. Happy foraging and happy winter. Get out there and enjoy. Thanks everyone. Bye.